Welcome to Catholic Views. I'm your host, Renee Kranz. On today's show, we will have Bishop Don Kettler back in the studio to tell us his story of how he got his call to the priesthood. We also talk about what it was like to be a bishop. And I know there's some other things, but we did the interview a little while ago, so I don't remember everything we talked about. I know he's always a lot of fun when he's here, so we're excited to have him back. First, we have some biblical bites with Dr. B, but it is not Dr. B sitting across from me. We have a substitute teacher in the studio.
Is impersonating a doctor of theology, is that like a crime of some sort?
I don't know. We'll have to ask Chris
The
when he
opinions
gets
represented
back.
here are my own. They do not represent those of
Yes. So the voice you
Dr.
hear is...
Bergwald or Biblical Bites Incorporated.
Yes. So the voice you hear is that of Father Scott Trainer, who has graciously agreed to step in and I'm sure knock it out of the park as I always want to call Bergwald Bishop, and that's terrible. That's way too much for him.
It's the blue suit. Oh, wait.
Thank you, Father Scott, for coming in and helping us out.
Of course.
So, go run away with it. We have a very interesting gospel this week.
We
I
do.
know.
In this week's gospel, we hear Jesus address Jesus saying...
Jesus addressed Peter.
Simon Peter.
Okay.
Saying, thank you, "Get behind me, Satan. You're an obstacle to me." That's remarkable.
It is.
Right?
It is.
And it's all the more remarkable because it's part of the same interaction. So, in the Sundays in Ordinary Time, we have quasi-continuous readings through a gospel, and we're in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16. Last week, we heard Jesus say, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood have not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven."
Yeah.
And then Jesus goes on to talk about his coming passion, and Peter takes him aside and rebukes him, to which Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan. You're an obstacle to me. You're thinking not as God does, but as human beings do."
That is incredible when you put those two Sundays together. Like, I don't know how many people think about that, but whew.
Yeah, like that happened back to back.
Yeah.
And it's there in Matthew's gospel, back to back.
Yeah.
So I want to say two things about this. First of all, it's important to know that there is a way that God thinks that's different from the way we sort of think in our fallen nature.
Right.
So I can look at any situation, any relationship, any decision from one of either of those two positions.
Right.
And clearly, please God, help me to see things as you see them.
I was going to say one is better than the other.
To think about them as you think about them, to feel about them as you feel about them, to desire what you desire.
Right.
Right. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is, Jesus isn't like trying to belittle Peter. Here.
Right.
He's not trying to embarrass him or belittle him, but it's actually a school of discernment.
Okay.
In the many things that are stirring in our hearts, we can actually sort out what's from God and what's not from God.
Right.
Okay. Which doesn't mean anything I think, feel, or desire is from God. Clearly not.
Right.
Clearly not. But there is a real difference. And when I hear of the many voices clamoring for my attention interiorly, when I hear something that bears the hallmarks of the fruits of the Holy Spirit, that is a clear sign that that thought, feeling, or desire is of God.
Okay.
Okay. Or at least in harmony with God, if not from God directly. And so this is actually a school of discernment for Peter. Like, Peter, remember when you confessed that I am the Christ, the Son of the living God? See, you didn't figure that out. You're not the smart guy in the room, and you just sort of figured this out. But it was a grace from my Father, the realization that I am the truth of who I am. Notice what that felt like in your heart. Notice the feelings and fruits of the Holy Spirit that accompanied that realization. Contrast that to what you're thinking now when you are saying, "God forbid that I should suffer or die."
Right.
That feeling, which, we can understand that. Like, I don't want a person I care about to suffer or die. But whatever was going on in Peter's heart, whether it was fear or, he was offended or whatever, is just not from God.
Right.
Peter, pay attention to what that's like interiorly. So here you have a thought, "I'm the Son of the living God." Here you have a thought, "God forbid you should suffer." Those come from two different places. Notice the difference. So it's kind of a school of discernment for Peter. The other thing I'd like to say about this is all happening in a place called Caesarea Philippi.
Yes, yes.
Caesarea Philippi. So if you have a map of the Holy Land, you have a lake up top and a lake at the bottom. Lake up top is the Sea of Galilee. Lake at the bottom is the Dead Sea. There's a river that connects them.
Oh, okay.
North to south. That's the Jordan River. So that's kind of your basic map of the Holy Land. Caesarea Philippi is on the northeast corner of the Sea of Galilee.
Okay.
Kind of central north on the Sea of Galilee is Capernaum, where Peter lived with his mother-in-law, and the right? Further west, if you go to the northwest corner of the Sea of Galilee and keep going west, you'll end up in Cana, like the wedding at Cana. So that's kind of all northern Galilee.
Yep.
So this interaction's happening there. In Caesarea Philippi today, if you go on pilgrimage there, there is a natural little low cliff bluff. It's like a natural amphitheater. And into that amphitheater were carved shrines to all the Greek and Roman gods.
Yeah.
Because that was a major crossroads for trade.
Right.
'Cause
Capernaum, all of those places,
Caesarea Philippi, because you could go north up into like Lebanon and Syria or go west to the rest of Galilee. But it was a major crossroads, like the intersection of I-29 and I-90. Okay? And so they had this place. And people who were, devoted to the Greek and Roman gods, it was like the mall. You could go from one shrine to another and ask your blessing, like prosper my business, heal my child, protect my travel. But it shows something about the Greek and Roman gods because you go to each god not really knowing what you were going to get.
Right.
And just hoping one of them would hear you and throw a blessing your way.
Right.
But our God, Jesus Christ, God the Father, the Holy Spirit, is a God who is knowable, who wants to draw us into personal relationship with him so we can know with clarity what his plan of love is for us. And in order to lead into that amazing relationship with our God of Revelation, who wants us to know him, we need to learn the difference of what his voice sounds like in our heart versus what's not his voice.
Really good stuff, Father Scott. Thanks for filling in.
You're welcome.